Hello, I'm Roberto Baldwin, and this is Tomorrow Today's Sustainable Mobility Brief. The transportation world is evolving at a rate not seen in decades. The transition from fossil fuels to sustainable energy has brought with it some truly exciting opportunities, but also some confusion. I'll sift through the noise and share quick updates on the latest news, trends, and advancements that will impact our world for years to come. This week, we have Mark Leduc, SAE's Technical Content Manager, and I'm just going to say the person behind the scene of SAE's World Congress Experience, aka WCX. Now, I was going to do a big intro about WCX, but frankly, I should just tell us a little bit, just off the high level, what is WCX?
WCX is the place where engineers convene to problem solve around all of the latest technical advances in mobility. I refer to it as bumper to bumper and bits to bytes. So we talk about the car, both from itself in a edge, you can look at it as an edge device, all the way through to the physical nature of the vehicle, from tires, windshields, the whole bit. So we look at the car both from itself and as it is in the ecosystem that it drives around in.
Cool. Now, the big word out there in the automotive world is sustainability. And the automotive world is moving to a more sustainable model. But I think most people have this very narrow view of what that means. How will WCX expand their understanding of sustainability?
Great question. Well, you look at sustainability, to your point, is what exactly is sustainability? And that's what we try to have conversations around at WCX. So is sustainability the propulsion system? Is it the manufacturing practices? Is it looking at it from the software side? Is it circularity? All of those things are indeed sustainability. You look at even from an infrastructure standpoint, how do you develop clean energy? So WCX looks at it, it's in its entirety of sustainability. So we do have, again, we do battery sessions. We got about 30 hours of battery content. We also do things like recycled materials for interiors. We're looking at the whole issue of how do you design for recyclability. We look at batteries from the standpoint of circularity. So there is a rather large breadth and scope. We also even get involved in sessions on infrastructure. So that really is, when you look at sustainability, while it's a very large thing to think about, we break it down into tech tracks by various components of powertrain, software, interiors, materials. All of those things are broken into various tracks, and sustainability is in a significant amount of that.
We talked about the batteries and the circular economy and tracking those. And then, one of the big, things going on right now is this battery passport. It's going to be passed in the EU. It's regulatory in the EU, but it can be a little confusing to some people. And how if you go to WCX, how are you going to sort of, get through the noise, get the signal that you need to know as either an engineer or someone at an OEM or even a student?
Sure. It's absolutely a fresh new thing. I don't fully get all of the nuances of the battery passport. I do understand what its intent is, of course, is to follow along traceability and circularity in the battery. We are working with our sustainable mobility solutions team to bring in some subject matter experts in the learning lab. And they're actually going to sit around for about an hour and have a conversation on the show floor and to talk about that. We also have a group of our standards folks that will be at the battery pavilion and around that area on the show floor, who can kind of share their thoughts and opinions around battery passport. Again, we will have 30 hours of content in the technical session rooms. While that doesn't directly address battery passport, it's certainly a question that engineers can bring up as appropriate in those rooms. But really, the main area of that is going to be focused in the learning lab, where we'll have a subject matter expert where we'll do some interviewing, and then you can ask questions of that individual on the show floor.
Yeah, that's great. I think battery technology is moving so quickly. I think to the average person, they don't realize, density is becoming, where they're working on density, they're working on adjusting the chemistry, they're working on how the battery works with the vehicle as a software-defined vehicle, and there's so many things that are happening so quickly. We're really in the early days when it comes to EVs, and for batteries, and so I think having a place where you can go and get information essentially directly from the horse's mouth
Sure.
is going to be huge for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we talked about sustainability, and of course, batteries is always going to sort of you know loom large over that conversation. But you talked about circularity and textiles. Now, where is the industry headed on that front?
Well, actually, it's interesting you bring that up because they have been looking at sustainable materials for years. I mean, there are times that I have had the opportunity to talk with folks that are from the OEM where they're looking at, there was at one point where they were taking recycled money and making actually the coin container in the vehicle out of recycled money. So it was actually the joke was they were actually giving you money when you bought the car, right? So it's been around for a really long time. And it's really part of this whole initiative as we look at electric vehicle to try to have more sustainable. The other part about it is looking at it from a circularity standpoint, right? You get in, is it possible to actually recycle the car, take the materials from the interior and recycle them and then sell them right back. And you know what you're getting because you bought the material the first time from a circular economy perspective. So we're doing some technical sessions in interiors at WCX around that. Again, as I shared before, we got a panel discussion that the Sustainable Mobility Solutions Group is moderating in the technical session. So that ought to be a real interesting conversation around that because while it's been around, it's kind of got, as you would say, new life to it where people are looking at it from a circular perspective, not just what kind of recyclable materials am I going to buy? It's how do I take it, reuse it, reuse it again, and continue through to the, ultimately till its demise.
I've talked to BMW a few times about this, and they're really at the forefront of what's going on in this. They've shown off concept cars. They're essentially just built in order to be recycled, where they instead of merging components, what makes it more difficult to pull them apart when it comes to recycling. Like each part of the car is essentially one material. That way, when it goes to be recycled, they can just take that one material, recycle it, and then use it again, either for a car or a chair, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of times to your point, I've been involved in listening to some conversations around the fact that, again, you get the materials person, they sell you a recycled material. They then go when the car goes and gets, at its end of its life, they buy that material, recycle it, and then sell it right back. So they're actually reselling to the same thing. So the quality of the material you're getting because it's coming from the same place and being recycled. It's way mind blowing, honestly, is how you look at the management of that. And I get it where we're talking about singular clips and that sort of thing and really looking at. So I think there's some of the reason why you're looking at EVs and future vehicles having a more simple interior approach because they want to get into that circular aspect of it.
Yeah, this is a sustainability podcast, but the reality is that many of the technologies that are coming to the automotive world are going to be developed in conjunction with electrification. For example, AI has been a huge topic for automakers. What can WCX attendees expect from us at the event on that front?
Well, AI is prevalent throughout the event. We have a couple of really interesting keynotes that are going to focus on AI, and then we look at software-defined vehicle in AI. We are looking at it from the electrification in AI and looking at narrow AI applications. We're also looking at it from the manufacturing and design side of it. So it is just permeated throughout the program. And several years ago, it was very difficult to find AI folks that were willing to talk, and we really ramped up probably since COVID really ramped up. There's been some really great work done by our organizers and going out and recruiting both from the academic institution as well as the industry itself to look at that AI. And again, you have narrow AI versus general AI. And one of the things that we're trying to do with our keynote from Toyota is to get their perspective on the application of it. Is it good, evil, or are we just paranoid is the title? And that kind of gets into my head, looking at some of the things around it, because I look at some really interesting narrow applications of ADAS and AI, and I really find some great value in it. But then again, my brain goes a little bit to the dark side, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
We all watch Terminator. That's the problem. We all watch.
Well, yeah, it was like, is it going to be Kit from Knight Rider for those old enough to remember? And then again, you're looking at Terminator, or is it somewhere in between, or a little of all of it?
Well, yeah, I think especially when you talk about the narrow bits of AI, where it's being heavily focused on a certain task. I don't think people should be too concerned. But again, we've all watched Terminator.
Well, some of us are old enough to remember when Knight Rider, Kit from Knight Rider, but that would date me a little bit. But again, yeah, it's the same. I think that's where, people are looking at it and saying, what is going to be that user experience around it? Where does AI fit into that? And one of the nice things at WCX is that we have the Leadership Summit. We have really some great subject matter experts that are going to talk about that whole user experience and where does all of that fit into the consumer expectation and usability, right? Because, let's be honest, we all want our phone to just go into the car and automatically plug in. What are those strategies based on OEMs? What does the consumer want? Are we this or are we this? Are we joining together properly? All of those things are going to be addressed.
Yeah, I think they're maybe for a few years there was a little bit of disconnect from what consumers want, and I think we automakers and some of these smart folks are coming around. They're like, okay, we have the technology now. How do we make it work with what people actually want in their vehicles? They just want easy navigation. They just want access to charging stations, or they just want to know where's the cheapest gas.
Yeah, the question is, ultimately, what is it that the customer wants and how are they looking at a business model in order to make sure that, you have over-the-air updates. Tesla is doing, significantly cool work in over-the-air updates. And so other industry OEMs are looking at that and how that goes. I mean, ultimately, I love a world in which I could get up and my phone talk to my house and my house talk to my car. And then as I'm driving down the road, it placed my order. The golden era of the full idea of bringing this to bear. Is that what the consumer wants, or is it much, much simpler than that? And I think that, you're going to find these are things that are going to shake out. And that's one of the nice things that the Leadership Summit does, is bring these experts to kind of talk about where that reality is now, where is it going to be in the future, and again, what are those business models to get them there in order to do these things.
Yeah, I think this leadership panel is. I mean, it's important because as more and more automakers are moving to a software-defined vehicle, which is essentially Tesla has and Rivian, but these companies are startups. They're able to create software like. It was just a few years ago where all these legacy companies, they're having to sort of start over, like Mercedes with this MB.OS. They have to start over. They have to keep putting out legacy models while slowly adding their new software-defined vehicle setup to their lineup. It's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of software developers that I don't think people are thinking about when it comes to automotive.
Well, you combine that with the really interesting about where's the propulsion systems going to be at. We've heard recent announcements of going to hybrids because it was going right from ICE to EV, and now the consumer acceptance issue gets into that. And that's part of the discussion. So you look at this business of technology, going back to the Leadership Summit, we're going to hear from the tier one suppliers. They're in a really interesting position because, again, as the OEMs are looking at it, they're now asking the tier ones, you got to be thinking around this advanced propulsion EV. Now, all of a sudden, we have a hybrid system in it. We have an ICE, and where's all that capital coming from?
Yeah.
The joke is how many and how much and when, right? That's kind of the
Yeah.
answer. And we're going to talk about that. That's the Thursday afternoon panel that kind of concludes WCX at the Leadership Summit. So that's going to be a real interesting conversation because it's not, if it would be real simple, and I mean that, you know, in quotes, if it were just one thing, right? If it were just talking about we're
Yeah.
moving from mech to a more mechatronic system. Well, now you're throwing mechatronics in with a propulsion system, and there's some growth strategies around ICE, hybrid, and EV, and and then you throw the consumer in there as to what they want, right? Because that's the great analogy. I just would have built a faster horse, right? If we had
Yeah.
really looked at it, right? So the question is, what is that consumer want and need, and how does all that play in the sandbox together?
So I'm an engineer. I have limited time. What day should I show up to WCX?
The number one question that I get all the time is, what is the day to come? And the answer is, that's like asking me to choose which of my children is my favorite. Thursday is packed this year between the Doug Field keynote and the tier one panel discussion that concludes it on Thursday. It's impossible for a person to not come and stay for the full 3 days to get that full fit, feel, and flavor of the program. Ultimately, we try to build Thursday to be as valuable to the industry as Tuesday and Wednesday. So for an engineering member attending, it would be an extraordinarily difficult thing not to come for all 3 days. So I would challenge them to try to figure out what day to come, because all 3 days are excellent content.
This year at the keynote, you have some pretty heavy hitters. Can you give us a little idea of what to expect from these sessions?
Yeah, each morning we're going to have a discussion around about 8:30, and as the aforementioned, we're talking Toyota research team. We have the head of their group looking at user experience, and they're going to talk about AI. And then you have Jeremiah from Qualcomm, who's going to talk about deciphering the coded car and the role of generative AI. And then we're really excited to have Doug Field from Ford come, and we're going to have our SAE president, Carla Balo, sit down with him and just kind of have a conversation with him. We're calling it a fireside chat. And we're going to have that conversation around it. If you know Doug, he comes from, Segway originally, and then has been with another OEM and Apple, and now he's with Ford. It will be really interesting to see what his perspective on all of this is as a C-suite person trying to lead Ford into that next generation of vehicle development.
Cool. Yeah, I've interviewed Carla a few times as a journalist, and she's outstanding. She's great to talk to, and I'm really looking forward to that, because I think Doug has a lot of really interesting things. I think Ford has been doing some really great things, especially when it comes to electrification. I mean, the recent news that they're the first ones to support the Tesla charging network, which is huge news for Mach-E and Ford F-150 Lightning owners. So it should be a fun chat.
We're looking at, with that next, what is the issue around standards, right? That kind of turned standards on its head a little bit, let's be honest, around the business side now with standards. So we have another conversation on that topic of really looking at what impact does something like NACS have on the idea of standards and its application. And I'm looking forward to that discussion, because I think for the first time, as far as I've ever known, we've really had a business driver impacting standards development. And I think that should be a real interesting conversation as to whether that's one-off or whether there's going to be more business drivers like that, and what impacts does it have on the development of standards.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, because CCS seemed to be the set standard for DC fast charging for years, and then suddenly, I believe Ford was the first one to say, or GM, and they said, we're moving to the Tesla, well, now it's called NACS, but at the time it was the Tesla standard. Now it's NACS J3400. And, SAE moved very, very, very quickly to start, working on that standard. And Tesla has essentially given us over the control of that. And you can go to Tesla's site and they just say, go to SAE to figure it out, to figure this out at this point.
Yeah, well, again, to your point, it's interesting because again, you're looking at what are they, 12,000 chargers that they have. They had an infrastructure built, so now all of a sudden, that's a business driver, right? Consumers want to have convenient charging with proper uptime and making sure that they get there. And so if that business driver is influencing, because that was a different charger, so a charger connector, excuse me. So again, that ought to be a real interesting thing to see how, as we move towards new technology on the horizon, is there impact like that and on other standards? And it should be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it's again, everything's moving so quickly. And I think I think some people say SAE is a sort of an old school organization, but we can, and we will continue to support the internal combustion engine portion of the automotive world for years because it's not going anywhere, especially with hybrids. But WCX clearly is an event that's about the future, and it's the future of internal combustion, hybrids, electrification, and just how these vehicles actually work. And so I think it's we've just sort of scratched the surface of what's happening in WCX this year. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I'm a new employee.
Oh, welcome to the family.
So, but I've never attended WCX, so I'm really excited. Is there anything else you'd like to share about this year's event?
Well, you've covered it really well, Roberto. I will say that as a Detroiter here, we're going to welcome you with open arms to the D. And as you look at from an engineering perspective, it's the only automotive event that's going to be in Detroit in 2024 with some announcements around other events and activities happening. So we're really excited to welcome the entire engineering community from both the Detroit area, but globally, right? From China, India, Germany, and elsewhere. So to really look forward to having these critical conversations around safety, emissions, environment, and sustainability. So I look forward to breaking bread with you when you come here. And we got some really lovely restaurants, of course, in town. So I really hope you enjoy yourself.
I'm looking forward to Detroit-style pizza.
Oh, it's the best. I'm a big Buddy's fan myself. I've put on a few pounds since it's just down the street for me, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's one in the Bay Area where I live, and I had it. I'm like, well, now next time I go to Detroit, I got to get the original and the best. So
yeah, Buddy's is it. Yeah, there's right downtown. Buddy's is the place. Shameless promotion. I get no plug for it, but it's fantastic pizza.
Everyone loves pizza. So yeah, if you want more information about WCX, you can go to wcx.sae.org. The event this year is happening April 16th through 18th. Mark, thanks so much for chatting with me today. Yeah, I'll see you in Detroit.
A real pleasure, and thank you.
Be sure to subscribe and listen every week on your favorite podcast platform.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.